Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Salt and Stall Animal Room at the Science Center in Ithaca, New York. I'm Colin. I'm the curator of live exhibits here at the Science Center. And I, with a great team, take care of all of our critters here. And we're back to do another quick tour of the animal room. We're looking at our cichlid tank right now. We've got a new batch of cichlids in here. These are all young ones. I'm going to go ahead and give them some food right now. Don't worry, these guys eat pelleted food. It's a special cichlid diet. They see me coming, they're excited about it. There are different types of cichlids found throughout the world. These are African cichlids. A few of the salt lakes in Africa, in the Rift Valley, have some of the greatest speciation of fish. There's hundreds of species that occur in these lakes, and it's a pretty neat biological conundrum as to how so many species of fish were able to evolve, all living amongst each other. These are just young fish. A few of our lemon drops, the yellow ones, were actually bred here at the Science Center. We had lemon drops in our last group of cichlids, and a few of these babies were fortunate enough to not get gobbled up. They made it actually into our filtration system, which is where we were able to catch them up and raise them up in our back room. A fun fish. It'll be fun to watch them grow. Oh, and our little catfish. Cynodontis was just making a peek. There's been the same cyno in here, the same catfish, for longer than I've worked at the Science Center, more than 5 years now, maybe as many as 8 years. This catfish has been here, and it's super secretive. It's almost always hiding out. Rarely do you ever get to see it, but on a rare occasion, it'll poke its head out, dart around for some food before it jumps back into the cave it lives in. Now that we got those guys fed, today I'm going to take you all back into my prep room. Show you a few things back there. My prep room is where we have some holding tanks to hold animals that aren't on exhibit for whatever reason, and also where we'll do all of the preparation of all of the foods that we give the animals. So let me take you back there and show you a few things. We'll get to peek at a few other exhibits on our way. Here are our big glorious lionfish. They're hiding up at the top. They've seen me coming. They're hoping they're going to get an extra meal today. Sorry, guys. If you're big and fat enough, you can wait till tomorrow. On to our reef exhibit. There's the reef. Oh, sorry for the bumpy ride. Trying to get my cart through here. We'll stop and take a quick look at our green tree pythons. As I've mentioned in some of our past tours, our female here, that's the male. The male's actually in shed right now. You can see he's a little opaque, he's a little bluish, his eyes are getting a little cloudy. So another time I'll talk to you about the shed cycle of snakes. It's a neat process of how it works. But here's our female. She's a little in the shadows. You can see though, she's got this nice great big belly. She ovulated just recently, so she's now gravid. She's now developing eggs. And hopefully in a month or two, the next thing that will happen is she'll have a pre-lay shed. She'll go through a shed cycle like the male's doing right now. And then after she's shed, she'll then hopefully lay some good eggs for us. And if that happens and I'm able to incubate them well, I'll swing around this way, then maybe we'll have some little baby green trees to show off. There's our dark frog exhibit and our white tree frogs. And here's our axolotls somewhere. There they are. And then we turn here and we're going to head into our prep room. So again, we keep animals back here that we use for educational outreach. Oh, gotta gather up my cords. Yep. So we keep animals back here for educational purposes. And animals that are being held that haven't gone on exhibit yet. Or if we have any animals that are sick and needing treatments, we'll often bring them back here. Many of you all might recognize this guy. This is Norbert. He's our resident bearded dragon. He's a super friendly and fun lizard. Loves to come meet you guys when we're open and you can come visit. He's basking right now. He's a desert animal from Australia and so has high UV needs we've talked about in the past. So we've got a special UV light there that helps him keep his bones strong and stay healthy. And in here, we've got our California king snake, Bob. And see if he wants to come out and say hi. Oh, he certainly does. He's hoping for some food. Sorry, Bob, I don't have a mouse for you today. Oh, sorry, guys. Maybe another day, we'll get you a mouse. So there's our California king snake. Like most snakes, when he's not actively hunting or eating, he's happiest hidden away under a box like that. Unfortunately, almost everything likes to eat snakes. And so a snake is always happiest and most comfortable when they can be hidden away. So that's Bob. So we've also got our fat tail gecko pair here. Well, likewise, these guys are nocturnal, so that means they're active at night. Right now they're sleeping away under their turtle shell. I'm going to let them slumber. I won't bother them too much. And then in here, we've got our crested geckos. Oh, there we go. Rhactodactylus. This is, I believe that's our male crested gecko there. We have a group of them, a 1.2 group. That's one male and two females. Let's see. There's another one hiding in the plant there. I believe that's Splat. She's our longest resident crested gecko. She's a beautiful animal. We've named her Splat because, well, when we first got her, she would often go splat. She was a little jumpy, and when we would try to handle her, she would often jump off of our hands. You guys may have seen my keeper Emily. She did a Zoom activity this past week and showed off a bunch of our geckos. They're pretty cool critters. You can check that video out as well on our Facebook page. So those are a few of our educational animals. Here, this is a funny thing, kind of gross, but these are all old eggs that our geckos laid. They've been pretty prolific and have laid lots of eggs. We don't have a need for lots of little baby crested geckos, so we don't incubate them. We let them dry out and die, which is a little sad, but better than having geckos that don't have homes. Now if we come over here, try to give you a bigger picture view of my prep room here. So here I've got this rack. It's mostly for aquariums. Down here, these are saltwater systems. I'll show you those a little close again. On this second rack, there's mostly here, there's dart frogs and a special lizard there that I'll show you in just a minute. And then up top, we've got holding tanks for freshwater systems. Right now there's not a whole lot up there. We've got a bunch of guppies in some of the tanks to help keep the biological filter alive. And we've got a grow out tank for little baby shrimp that come out of our Curiosity Corner tank, the planted tank over there. And then down at the end there's some tanks set up for cichlids, for when we've had baby cichlids. That's a place where we can raise them up, keep them safe from the adults that would gobble them up. Let me come bring you down and show you my saltwater systems here. This is my frag tank. So as I've mentioned with the reef tank before, corals grow very much like plants, and they often need to be pruned and cut back when they've grown and done really well. When corals start to grow into each other, they'll actually start to have chemical warfare, and they'll sting and burn each other and try to compete for space. And so I regularly, when corals are doing well, you have to go in and break pieces of them off, and then, here, this is one of the tools of the trade, a tube of super glue. You can actually use super glue and glue corals onto these discs that are in the back there. Right now I've emptied the frag tank out quite a bit because I've mentioned in some of the past tours our reef tank sprung a leak, and so we'll be replacing that tank really soon. And so I've cleared out a lot of space in here so that we'll have the space to put the corals while we do the tank turnover. That's a Duncan's coral there. That's a fun one. Looks kind of like an anemone. The first Duncan's coral I bought had a single polyp, and you can see it's divided into two different ones, and there are tons and tons of polyps mouths on those two corals there. And these are the frog spawn we looked at before. And then over here there's some Millipora and some Bacillophoras, Cactus pavona. There's a few mushrooms in here. I've tried to get the mushrooms out because the mushrooms, they're a soft coral and they're fairly aggressive and will sting a lot of the hard corals. So I've tried to get all the mushrooms out of that tank. I've moved them over to this tank. This is our mushroom tank. Gosh, do we have a whole lot of orange mushrooms. They're beautiful, but they are a little too prolific. We've got way too many, and I'm constantly having to battle with the mushrooms to keep them from stinging and hurting other corals. Then this is our quarantine system here. Right now I keep a pair of clownfish in here just to have some life so that the biological filter is working. If ever we were to get new fish or needed to treat any of our saltwater fish, they would go into this system. I would take the clownfish out and we'd put the other fish in here. We'd have a strong biological filter to help keep the water clean, and then we could add medication to the tank if necessary. So that's a quarantine system. There are these, we have this is a great system set up here. These are our sumps down here. These are sort of the filtration systems for all of these systems. Many of the tanks are plumbed together and run through here. You can see the saltwater tanks, these things in the front there, those are called protein skimmers. They're kind of like sewage treatment plants. They pull out all the proteins and wastes out of the water. And then this one over here is our freshwater system. It has a big sort of canister filter, lots of bioballs. The biological filter for this system lives inside of that bucket. So that's the filtration systems. Let me bring you up top here. I'll show you our shrimp grow out tank. We'll see if we can find some little shrimp to look at in here. There's one of them. They're down there. I hope to get this live stream over to the Curiosity Corner. I saw another little one there. Let me see if I can get it. There on top of that piece of PVC, there's a little shrimp up there. Many of the shrimp in this tank are super, super tiny. When I do water changes, there we go. When I do water changes in the Curiosity Corner on our planet tank where many of the shrimp live, I always inadvertently vacuum up a few of these shrimp. And so before I throw away my wastewater, I always go through it and pick out the little baby shrimp that I've vacuumed up. There's another one. And I toss them in here and we let them grow up for a bit. And then we'll often use these little baby shrimp as trade fodder. I can trade these shrimp for some of the supplies and equipment we need. Try to keep our costs down. So there's some of our shrimp. Let me bring you down. We can look at some of the fun amphibians we have in here. This tank here with all the plants, this is a morph tank, I call it. This is where some of our dart frogs are Erotis. out on exhibit there, they occasionally will lay eggs. And so then we set the eggs up in these cups here. Keep them covered. We don't have any eggs right now. I don't have any to show you. But when they do lay eggs, we'll set them up there. And then we've got one last tadpole. We haven't had eggs for a long time. This tadpole is not quite right. This tadpole has been a tadpole for an inordinate amount of time. For some reason, it won't finish morphing. Let me see if I can get him to move. See, it's got great big back legs. And it's developed its front legs in there, but they won't pop out through the skin and it just won't complete metamorphosis. I've bred tons and tons of dart frogs. I've never seen this happen before. I'm not quite sure what's happened to this frog. But this is the morph tank, so we set our tadpoles up in little cups. When the tadpoles hatch, we set them up into individual cups. They're cannibalistic, so they'll eat each other. So each tadpole has to go in their own cup. And then we feed them and clean them periodically. We do let some scum build up, as you can see in here, because the tadpoles will actually eat that scum. They'll go along and eat the algae and the bacteria film that lives in the cup. So we change the water regularly, but we kind of let that scum live in there. And then once they get about this far along, then we usually move them into this morph tank. And this is a tank where there's water for them to live in here, but when they're big enough and they're absorbing their tail and growing their lungs, then there's also land in the back here where the frogs can morph out. And then once they've fully morphed, we can catch them up and set them up in their own little cage and start feeding them frog food instead of tadpole food. I want to bring you all over and show you a couple frogs here. We have one species of frog that we don't keep on exhibit. See if you can see my tag. Not showing up very well. These are imitators, they're called. This variety of imitators are called Chazuda. Oh, there's one there. I think I can get you a good look at one. We had a group of these donated. Oh, it's trying to hop away there. There it goes. Got a little scared of me coming. Let me see if I can find another one to show you. They're quick little frogs. There's one back here, but I'm not sure my camera is going to be able to pick it up. A little too dark in the back of that cage. These imitators, on a previous tour I talked about the Pumilio and how they're obligate egg feeders, that their tadpoles must eat eggs. Well, these imitators aren't obligate egg feeders, but the females will come and lay eggs for the tadpoles to eat. So the tadpoles will eat all sorts of things, including unfertile eggs that the mother will bring them. This is another cage we have with the imitators. This one just has a pair in here. And these guys have laid a number of eggs and have reared a few babies too. We've pulled a few of the babies and raised them in cups, but generally in this tank we've let the adults raise the babies. This is a bromeliad here. This is where they often will raise their babies in those cups. I'm trying to see if I can find one of the adult frogs to show you. And they all seem to be hiding now. I made the mistake of coming to clean the glass so it would look a little better for you all before I did this tour. And of course I probably scared them all, so they're all hiding away. I do have, I think the eggs are gone. Let me see if I can get the camera in here. In the back here. We put these film canisters in because occasionally the frogs will use a film canister like they use the bromeliad. There we go. I'm not getting a great shot of it, but back there on that leaf there, you can see that reflection of the light. That was a batch of eggs that they laid recently. And just the other day, when there were still tadpoles there, I saw one of the adults tending them. I'm not sure if they were watering the eggs. There we go. I don't know if they were keeping the eggs moist or perhaps. It's hard to see in this light. There are no tadpoles in that, no tadpoles and no eggs. It is just a jelly mass. And so the tadpoles that were in those eggs have hatched, and the adults came and picked them up and have deposited them into some of these leaf axils. So somewhere in these leaves, there's some tadpoles that the adults will now take care of. They'll eat algae that grows in there, and perhaps if some little bugs fall in, they might gobble those up too. But then the female will also come periodically and lay eggs for them. So those are a couple of our frog exhibits. And now, I'm going to show you the animal I'm most excited about back here. We recently acquired this animal. Its Latin name is Shinosaurus crocodilaris. It's a Chinese crocodile lizard. And here she is, she's hiding right in the front. She's a pretty unusual lizard in that she lives almost completely aquatically. She will climb out of the water and bask at times, but she is happy to spend almost all of her time hanging out in the water. She's a beautiful animal. Another neat thing about these, this isn't neat. Another really sad thing about these lizards is that there are very few of them left in the wild. I don't know if I mentioned, their common name that they often go by is the Chinese crocodile lizard. The species name Crocodilaris gives that away, and they're called that. I don't know how well we'll be able to see the tail. They don't have a long snout like a crocodile. I'll try to get rid of some of this glare. But their tail, if you can see that tail, it has two ridges along it. They have bony plates all over their body, much like crocodiles do. And they also have that ridged tail, which is very much like a crocodile tail. So that's where they get the name Crocodilaris, or crocodile lizard. You can see we keep guppies in there. She would occasionally grab a guppy, but life is pretty good and easy for her, so she typically just eats crickets and mealworms. But the sad thing about these lizards is that there are very few of them left. They believe there are now under 1,000 animals, maybe as low as 900 or even 800 lizards left in the wild. And so because of their very imperiled populations, wild populations, they are now, the captive population in the US, at least in zoos, is being managed through a species survival program, an SSP. And that's where there's someone who keeps track of all of the Chinese crocodile lizards in zoos and many of the ones in private collections as well. And so we recently, this past year, we signed up to be a holding institution to help hold on to animals, to try to help keep a robust population in captivity, to try to keep genetic diversity going for as long as possible. And so this animal was sent to us from the Fresno Zoo. We've had her for a few months now. Awful glare there, sorry. So she's a fun lizard. We hope to have her on exhibit fairly soon. And of course, we'll probably wait till we open back up to the public before we'll put her out on exhibit. She's living a good life back in here. So that's our Chinese crocodile lizard. She's a really fun animal. Really excited to have her. And then we're just about running out of time. The last thing I was going to show you all and talk about a little bit is all of the critters that we culture and grow in order to have food for our animals. One of the most important things when keeping captive animals is keeping the right food for them. So these are our cricket cages down here. About every month or so, we buy a whole bunch of crickets from a cricket farm. We get them from Timberline. We actually just got crickets this morning, so we've got tons and tons of crickets right now. You can see them all running around. We feed them we keep them well watered all the time, and we give them a mash diet that's high in protein and helps keep them healthy. But then we also give them carrots, another source of moisture and good beta carotene. Helps bring out good colors in the reptiles when they eat them. So we keep lots of crickets, and crickets are one of the main staples that we feed many of our critters here. But the key to keeping captive animals is having a good source of food. It's easy with cats and dogs. It's a huge market. There's lots of food that's made for pets of that nature. Norbert heard me opening up the cricket cages. He's saying, "You got some for me? I'm hungry." He's always hungry. Norbert's an omnivore, so he eats crickets, but we also give him salad. This bowl upturned there is his salad bowl. He's polished off his last salad. And then some other critters to show you that we raise here are mealworms. This is our mealworm bin. See, I just tossed a couple carrots in for the mealworms, and they're starting to swarm on them. In probably another 10 or 20 minutes, these carrots will be completely covered with mealworms, and you won't even be able to see the carrots. So mealworms are another creature we culture here, specifically to feed to our animals. Mealworms are not very nutritious, which is why we feed them a lot of carrots. Try to make them a little more nutritious. And then we also have, here I'll show you this because this is an important part of keeping insect eaters. These are our supplements that we put on our crickets and mealworms. These are basically vitamins and minerals for our animals to help keep them healthier. So we periodically put different supplements on the crickets and mealworms to make sure they're as nutritious as possible. Move through here. Then another creature we culture. These are some of our old cultures here. This is usually where we store our fruit fly cultures. We're having a mite problem with them, so we've got a bunch of our cultures over here. So these are fruit fly cultures. There's a media in the bottom there, and that's what the flies and their larvae, their maggots, eat. And so we set these cups up, and these are ones that were just made today. And then these are some older cultures up here. Oh, getting short rope there. Sorry. And there you can see lots of little flies running around inside of there. Give that one a little tap. Probably get a lot more flies come running up there. There we go. And so our dart frogs couldn't survive without fruit flies. They primarily eat fruit flies. Our bicolor can eat small crickets, but all of our other dart frogs will just eat fruit flies or springtails. So that's another important food that we culture for our critters here. Then, I don't have any good brine shrimp to show you right now. We've kind of let the brine shrimp fall off a little bit as we've been closed. But this is our brine shrimp culturing vessels. So for the seahorses, we'll grow brine shrimp, and also we'll throw brine shrimp in with the reef tanks. Many things will like to eat brine shrimp. So we occasionally raise up brine shrimp there. And our fruit flies here are sitting on top of amphipod culture. Amphipods are little creatures like shrimp. I'm not seeing any right now. Amphipods are primarily nocturnal. So occasionally you'll see one running around on the substrate there during the day. But it's nighttime. This culture comes alive and you'll see amphipods all over the place. This culture hasn't been going for very long, so we haven't started to harvest from it yet. Though pretty soon we should be able to. We keep these filter pieces in here, and that's how we harvest them. So we can just pull one of those out, take it to our seahorse exhibit, and shake it out, and the amphipods will come falling out of it for the seahorses to eat. Then I'm going to try to show you, we also raise cocoapods. These are our cocopod vessels here, culture vessels, these long tubes. We keep an aerator in there to keep the water moving. Let me see if I can show you see how good this camera is. Maybe not quite good enough. There you can see there we we go. I think that's as close as I can get. You can see the Cocoapods running around on the side of the glass there. These are another little saltwater crustacean. There we go, a bunch of them. And so these cultures are just loaded with them. And so every day, I don't know if you noticed, one was labeled E and one is labeled O. So on every even day, we harvest from the E one, and every odd day, we harvest from the odd one. So every other day, they get a small water change, and we get to collect a whole bunch of these copepods. And these we'll put in the reef tank. The fish in there, we'll eat them, and many of the corals will actually catch these guys and eat them too. But we primarily put them now into our seahorse exhibit, and the seahorses love to eat them up. The bottom there, this is where the eggs often settle and the babies hatch out. And so the bottom substrate, it kind of builds up with muck, but is usually just covered with little copepods. And our seahorses, they're a little small for the seahorses to eat, but it gives them some good enrichment. So that's our prep room. There's our holding tanks. This is where we keep water. We run the water through RO units. There's one there and one back there. And that makes our tap water perfectly clean, takes out the chlorine and many of the other impurities in the tap water, nitrates and things, makes it clean. We have one for fresh water and one that we keep mixed up as salt water. And that allows us to be ready to do water changes on all of our exhibits. So that's our prep room. I appreciate you all coming to check out another tour of the animal room. Next week we're I'm shifting my schedule a little bit, so animal room tours will be on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Hope you'll tune back in. Keep showing you all some fun things around the animal room. Thanks. See you later.